without a doubt. I mean, it's not just taking 8 feet of Gary's property. It's taking 8 feet of Gary's property, putting in a path that's going to attract, mostly on weekends, recreational users, perhaps hundreds, maybe even thousands over the course of a weekend. I understand this is supposed to be a 24-hour path. There's going to be lighting, there's going to be noise, there's going to be trash receptacles, there's going to be parking. There's a number of other issues that affect Gary's property and everybody else along the way that you don't look at. It's not simply taking an 8-foot piece of property and putting a trail on it. There's all these other issues that impact somebody's use and enjoyment of their property. And that's a fundamental right as an American. Why should the rights to put a recreational path in there overcome personal property rights when there's not even a demonstrated need and there's a viable alternative? It just doesn't make sense.
So in your own personal experience, what will this mean to you? Are you sure your property will be taken, or what is your greatest fear here?
You know, and personally, I don't know that my property will be taken. There's several properties along this route that will be affected by eminent domain. But what it means to me is I'll have 40,000 visitors by Boulder County's estimate coming through my back property alongside my property.
60,000 in a year?
Well, 40,000 each way, back and forth, so that's 80,000
80,000,
passed. And you know, what does 40,000 people visiting this area mean? That's, in my estimation, 20,000 vehicles coming to the area that weren't there before, okay? We just widened 63rd Street. We put bike lanes on 63rd to protect the people riding along that road. We are in favor of that. That's a great idea. There's all kinds of bike lanes and trails.
Was there eminent domain there for that?
There was no eminent domain required for that. Niwot Road is under construction as we speak. They're going to widen that to put a bike trail. We think that's a wise decision. These roads are very narrow out there. They're country roads. So you've got 20,000 vehicles coming into this area, and it's a very dry area. We just had a very severe fire. I was asked to evacuate my property last year when that fire started up in the foothills. So you're introducing all these people to the area. You've got, you know, fire trucks and police and things like that that have to get to this area. We don't know where they're going to put the parking lots, the restrooms, and et cetera. They're not telling us that. We don't know if that's going to be eminent domain as well to place these facilities to support this recreational trail. The other important thing is Boulder County does not have access to this property along the canal. Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District has the first right to say, we'll allow you through this property or not. They also have the ability, once millions of dollars are spent on this trail, a week after they could say, shut it down.
Let's talk about that, because Colorado has a booming market of special districts, and these special districts don't have a lot of sunshine. There's not a lot known. There's not a lot of transparency, and some of them do a great job, and some of them do a not so great job. But what is the relationship between these special districts in counties and municipalities in the state? What we saw with the Telluride decision is that cities or home rule municipalities can feel free to exempt themselves from the Fifth Amendment, in my very biased perspective, but that basically these local governments don't have to abide by legislative mandates that say they can't take property for open space. So what does this mean for special districts? Can they do their own thing, or are they held to a different standard?
Well, special districts, there's approximately 26 or 2,500 in the state of Colorado. Each one has its unique rules. It's an interesting situation, particularly when compared to other states in the country. But in terms of what a special district can do in acquiring property through eminent domain, it's limited and it's specified by statute. What the county can do, however, oftentimes is much broader than what a special district can do. A county could go in, and if this entity is unwilling to sell to Boulder County, then what are they going to do? They're going to threaten to use eminent domain against them as well. Which brings me back to the cost and to the viability of other alternatives here. If there are roads, and if this is truly a transportation project, widen the road. Use existing transportation corridors to accomplish this feat for commuters. But the eminent domain aspect is going to be costly, because it's not just acquiring the property. It's not just paying for the piece of land that's taken. It's paying the property owner for the impacts that are outside of that land, and that can be exponential compared to the cost of the property in and of itself. And using eminent domain as a tool of last resort, it truly should be. And that's what the Kelo decision prompted a backlash from all the states to say, rein this in. Don't use eminent domain so loosey-goosey. Use it in a way that there's no other alternatives out there. And they're not doing that. And that's what this comes down to again. It's this emboldened local government.
But wouldn't, what do you say to the opponents or the supporters of plans like this that say, look, we're talking 80,000 people or 40 or 60 or 100,000, however many actually end up using this trail, compared to 160 families. Isn't the benefit to the public, given the sheer numbers of people who will enjoy this trail, doesn't that outweigh the detriment to the individual property owners?
If you were shooting straight and telling us what you're going to use the property for, that's one thing. It seems like they're saying it's supposed to be for commuters, it's supposed to be for transportation, when it's going to be primarily a recreational trail. So if you're going to use it for one thing, say you're going to use it for that thing. Don't say you're going to use it for another thing in a hope to get it passed, to get it spent, the money spent, and to get it paid for, and then go and use it for recreational use. So ultimately, there are reasons to do that. But again, it's not a traditional public use. It twists the meaning of public purpose from a road or a school or a police station or a city hall to a road through a rancher or a property owner's property for recreational, to take a bike ride on a Saturday afternoon. That's nice, but should personal property rights yield to that? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's suspect, I'll tell you that.
So in the last couple years, we've seen sort of a lull concerning eminent domain. A lot of the projects that were previously attempted to create high-density urban developments, or at least multifamily units, kind of stalled with the economy. But certainly this is a different type of eminent domain, one that doesn't promote greater tax revenue from an alternative use. So what do you think the prolonged economic downturn, if it ends up being prolonged, if we're talking about another year of a downturn, what will we see in terms of these types of takings for open space?
Well, it makes no sense to me or to I think any taxpayer to say in these economic times, each family out there is hurting. The governments are hurting accordingly because they generate revenue from taxes from the people. Right. Why are the governments spending money for open space and recreational uses when the government has a role to support and to help people? Recreational open spaces are nice, but it's an amenity. It's a nice thing to have. It's a luxury. It's not a necessary public use. So in these economic times, if they're using the money for these purposes now, I mean, one can only say how aggressive they're going to be when the economy comes back and their tax revenue increases.
Correct. Do you see any support from non-traditional allies, that people who may not like, they may want to peg you as a NIMBY, but who are also questioning the fiscal sanity of doing this type of project now?
Well, we've had a number of people that are members of biking organizations that have commented in the various blogs and through articles that if eminent domain is used to push this trail through the valley and acquire people's property against their will, they won't use this trail. And quite frankly, the logic and the planning that's gone into this trail is very ill-conceived. This trail is primarily for mountain bike riders. And again, this is a very boring, meandering, out-of-the-way trail. And so we think the thought process that's gone into this is faulty. And we think they need to look outside the box. We're willing to work with them on that, to open up the options, but we need to be heard too. We're 160 families throughout this valley, and we may not have the quantities to the level that the city of Boulder voters have, but we should be heard as well.